Donald Trump was elected president precisely to keep us out of disasters like war with Iran. So how did we get so close to starting one? Simple.
John Bolton, a veteran of both Bush administrations, one of the primary architects of the lie that started the war in Iraq, and President Trump's third national security advisor. Bolton would play a key role in convincing the administration and America that Saddam Hussein possessed weapons of mass destruction, triggering events that led to the war in Iraq, a virtually universally derided conflict that Bolton stands by to this day.
And obviously it's been, I'd say, a disaster. I think we agree.
No, I don't agree with that. And let me.
You don't think it's been a disaster?
No.
We killed hundreds of thousands of people, lost thousands of our own troops, spent more than $1 trillion, all to eliminate a WMD threat that, despite John Bolton's assurances, never existed in the first place.
His role has not been that of somebody who just was a pundit who wrote editorials supporting the war in Iraq, for instance. He was actually helping to have it happen. For years, he has been pushing for war.
I'd like to see regime change.
I think regime change in Iran is feasible.
This is simply not susceptible to diplomatic resolution. What we need is an overthrow of the regime in Tehran sooner rather than later.
And I think that's actually the preferred result in Iran is regime change.
I have said for over 10 years since coming to these events that the declared policy of the United States of America should be the overthrow of the mullah's regime in Tehran.
He has always supported war and opposed diplomacy in the interests of Israel in some cases, in the interests of the right-wing views in the United States in other circumstances.
And that has been his history. This is, I hesitate to use the word, a guy who likes war.
What we're seeing are actions coming from President Trump and his administration, led by John Bolton, that are dangerously escalating us closer and closer towards a devastating war with Iran. I've served in the Army National Guard now for over 16 years and went through this same thing in Iraq, a war that was championed by people like John Bolton, who lied to us and the American people, saying Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction, he's going to give them to al-Qaeda. That led us to a devastating war in Iraq that took over 4,000 American service members' lives, injuring many more, killing and injuring countless Iraqis, and strengthening terrorist groups like ISIS and al-Qaeda. And the reality of what we're seeing here is it appears John Bolton is using that same playbook once again to lead our country into war with Iran.
We are there to deter aggression. President Trump does not want war.
Whether he himself wants war or not, I don't think that's that important. The people driving policy, making policy, are in fact very determined to, from their point of view, solve the problem of Iran.
I don't want to be paranoid, but I've watched this before. It does seem as if people who work for him are pushing the United States into a position where war is very likely, if not inevitable. Am I imagining this?
Here's a map of the region, okay? And this is the border of Iran. The U.S. says the drone was flying here in international airspace. And if that's true, then that's clearly an act of aggression by Iran. Although, just for context, the border of the United States is over here. Just gives it a bit more perspective.
Right now, the U.S. is just kind of milling around right there at their doorstep. Now ask yourself for a moment, ask yourself, what do you think the U.S. would do if Iran all of a sudden was like, you know what, I'm just going to cruise right up here and just park myself right in this little spot right here. And all of a sudden we have Iran ships just hanging out. What do you think the U.S. would do? I think you know the answer to that. And this is why this is so utterly preposterous that they claim that Iran is the aggressor.
The United States is waging war on Iran. This is an economic war. Trump has admitted that. The United States has escalated the situation through not only violating the nuclear deal, but trying to harm ordinary Iranians as much as possible, in constantly threatening Iran. We have to remember that Trump just recently spoke about destroying Iran.
So Trump claims he doesn't want a war. The author put it, quote, "It looks like the war train could be grinding to a halt." I simply disagree. I just think that they're screwing something up again, or rather it just didn't work out the way they wanted, and so this is what they're presenting.
preparations for limited strikes on Iran were in their early stages when President Donald Trump pulled back at the last minute.
They came and they said, "Sir, we're ready to go. We'd like a decision." I said, "I want to know something before you go. How many people will be killed?" They said, came back, said, "Sir, approximately 150. And I thought about it for a second. I said, you know what? They shot down an unmanned drone, plane, whatever you want to call it. And here we are sitting with 150 dead people. And I didn't like it. I didn't think it was proportionate.
A senior administration official, speaking anonymously, said the strikes were halted due to quote-unquote concerns that the drone, or another U.S. drone, or the Navy P-8A had indeed strayed into Iranian airspace, quote-unquote, at some point.
The secretary of the Russian Security Council says Moscow has information that the U.S. drone downed by Iran in the Persian Gulf did violate Tehran's airspace.
I have evidence from the Russian Ministry of Defense that the drone was in Tehran's airspace. We did not receive any other evidence.
So now we're being lied to again, as Bolton and Trump push us closer and closer to a war with Iran. President Trump promised us during his campaign to get the United States out of stupid wars.
You said he lied. He got us into the war with lies.
Obviously, the war in Iraq was a big, fat mistake.
We spent $2 trillion, thousands of lives. We don't even have it. Iran is taking over Iraq with the second largest oil reserves in the world. Obviously, it was a mistake. So George Bush made a mistake. We should have never been in Iraq. We have destabilized the Middle East. I want to tell you, they lied. Okay. They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There were none, and they knew there were none. There were no weapons of mass destruction.
All right. Governor
John Bolton and others lied to us about the war in Iraq. They said that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction.
Bolton was one of the biggest liars, yet Trump appoints him as national security advisor.
I want to thank Ambassador John Bolton for joining us.
I mean, what's going on? He brought the Neos in to do their old stuff again. How do you explain that switch?
That's a great question.
Casino mogul Sheldon Adelson. He's worth an estimated $30 billion.
One of the biggest donors to Trump's presidential campaign.
Not only did his company notch a first quarter windfall of $670 million as a result of the massive Republican tax cut, he also scored big in his foreign policy interests. Trump scuttled the Iran deal as he hoped that he would, and is going to move the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem, also a big Adelson priority. Donald Trump's view on how Sheldon Adelson's giving works back in 2016 about the candidate you work for, Marco Rubio. Take a listen.
I like Sheldon a lot. He's been a person that I've known over the years. We have a very good relationship. And, you know, I'm self-funding. I don't want anybody's money. But if Sheldon gives to him, he'll have total control over Rubio. And that's the problem with the way the system works.
Seems kind of accurate.
Does it convince you now that he's seen something significant to change his mind?
What Trump has seen is a significant amount of Sheldon Adelson's money. And what Trump has done is put John Bolton in one of the most powerful positions because Sheldon Adelson wants John Bolton to threaten Iran.
You would support negotiations with Iran currently so long as they first seized all enrichment of uranium?
No. What do you mean support negotiation? What are we going to negotiate about? What I would say is, listen, you see that desert out there? I want to show you something. So you pick up your cell phone and you call somewhere in Nebraska and you say, okay, let it go. So there's an atomic weapon goes over ballistic missiles in the middle of the desert that doesn't hurt a soul. Maybe a couple of rattlesnakes and scorpions or whatever. And then you say, see, the next one is in the middle of Tehran. So we mean business. You want to be wiped out? Go ahead and take a tough position and continue with your nuclear development. You want to be peaceful?
So a tremendous demonstration of American strength so that they would get the message.
The only thing they understand.
And do you see the current negotiations as a demonstration of weakness?
Absolutely.
Sheldon Adelson's a thug just like John Bolton. They're thugs putting us at risk of another war in the Middle East.
He has really become a leading donor and a leading figure in this hawkish, pro-Israel, conservative sort of circle that is so influential in American politics.
Why is Adelson so driven on these causes, the mostly Israeli causes?
He is a cause donor. It's been really his animating political issue behind his donations for some time.
All we care about is being good Zionists, being good citizens of Israel, because even though I'm not Israeli born, Israel is in my heart.
Well, countries will do what they have to do to defend themselves, and the Israelis have a deep-seated fear of Iran, promoted by President Ahmadinejad himself, who's made so many threatening statements about wiping Israel off the map.
Israel will not allow Iran to develop nuclear weapons that threaten our existence and endanger the entire world.
And one of the reasons that they want to go after Iran so much is because they are their biggest threat in the region. The only other competitor there, Iran is supporting Palestine. They're supporting Hezbollah. They're the only one standing in the way of the Zionists.
Do not think no one wants a war. You don't have wars unless someone wants it. And quite clearly, the Israeli government would like to see the United States smash Iran's nuclear program.
The Israelis and the Saudis would love to see our money and our young men and women being killed to fight their enemies in Iran.
And so when we go to Pompeo and Bolton, for instance, Pompeo is hell-bent on protecting Israel at all costs. And he once said that Trump was elected by God, was chosen by God to protect Israel. Not to protect America, but to protect Israel.
What does Ambassador Bolton think is the greatest threat to America today?
I think the Iranians have clearly gamed what they plan to do after the defeat of the ISIS territorial caliphate.
Yes.
And we're now suffering the consequences with Iran literally on Israel's border.
Given all that, do you think Israel would be supportive of a strike of these training camps in Iran on our part?
I think they'd be delighted.
Prime Minister.
And good morning to you, Ambassador Bolton, John. It's wonderful to see you again in Israel. You've been a great friend of Israel for many years and a personal friend of mine for many years. And you have been an outstanding champion of the American-Israel alliance. And I have to say that that alliance is at an all-time high.
I welcome the opportunity to strengthen even further the deep cooperation between the United States and Israel.
Israeli ministers praise appointment of John Bolton. Who could be surprised there? We have politicians working for a foreign nation, not for the United States.
The Zionist Organization of America, backed by Sheldon Adelson, pressured Trump to fire National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster because he was not pro-Israel enough. ZOA National President Morton Klein said, "We are deeply concerned about General McMaster's actions in his role as the Trump administration's top national security advisor." He kvetches about McMaster not putting Israeli interests ahead of American interests, then says, "The ZOA strongly recommends that General McMaster be reassigned to a different role in this administration, unrelated to these critical issues." McMaster's job is to protect the national security of the United States, not to protect the national security of Israel. Remember, Trump is being financed by Israeli billionaire Sheldon Adelson, who said that Trump would be the best president for Israel ever. So what does Trump do about McMaster? He forces McMaster to resign. Imagine losing your job as the top national security advisor because you didn't support a foreign country enough. What's even worse is that Trump replaced the three-star general with pro-Israel chicken hawk John Bolton.
Bolton's entire career has been about serving powerful interests with no regard for ethics. An example of how underhanded Bolton is that he would go behind the backs of American officials and work against official U.S. policy in order to serve the interests of Israel. This is according to Danny Gillerman, the former Israeli ambassador to the UN. Look, many times he would call me or ask me to come and meet him, and for all intents and purposes would direct fire on his own forces in order to advance the interest of Israel, in contradiction to American policy. At the very moment that Powell was saying administration policy was not to attack Iran, Bolton was working with the Israelis to lay the groundwork for just such a war. And he angered State Department officials because he would be violating State Department protocol to have private meetings in Israel. To put it bluntly, Bolton cannot be trusted to serve the interests of the United States. Here's an example where Bolton was visiting with Republican megadonor Sheldon Adelson. The most threatening line in Trump's UN speech came directly from Bolton. Bolton's been carrying out Adelson's agenda. For those that thought that Trump would keep Bolton in check, look at this. Trump reportedly seeks Adelson's advice amid differences with Bolton.
Times of Israel in recording, Netanyahu boasts Israel convinced Trump to quit Iran nuclear deal. And then Netanyahu says Trump designated the Iran Guards a terror group at his request. On the eve of Israel's election, Netanyahu thanks Trump for sanctioning Iran at his request. So the sanctions were also Netanyahu's request. Oh, not in the best interest of America, guys. We're doing all this for a foreign country. Analysis: Netanyahu's Iran dilemma, getting Trump to act without putting Israel on the front lines.
My name is Donald Trump, and I'm a big fan of Israel. And frankly, a strong prime minister is a strong Israel. And you truly have a great prime minister. In Benjamin Netanyahu, there's nobody like him. He's a winner. He's highly respected. He's highly thought of by all. And people really do have great respect for what's happened in Israel. So vote for Benjamin. Terrific guy, terrific leader, great for Israel.
President-elect Trump, my friend, congratulations on being elected President of the United States of America. You are a great friend of Israel. Over the years, you've expressed your support consistently, and I deeply appreciate it. I look forward to working with you to advance security, prosperity, and peace. Israel is grateful for the broad support it enjoys among the American people, and I'm confident that the two of us, working closely together, will bring the great alliance between our two countries to even greater heights. May God bless America. May God bless Israel. May God bless our enduring alliance.
The deal doesn't even require Iran to dismantle its military nuclear capability. Yes, it places limits on its military nuclear program for only a certain number of years. But when those restrictions expire, Iran will have an industrial-sized military nuclear capability ready to go and with zero provision for delay, no matter how bad Iran's behavior is. Terrible, terrible situation that we are all placed in, and especially Israel.
Whereas Iran could soon be armed with intercontinental ballistic missiles and nuclear bombs, we must always remember, I'll say it one more time, the greatest danger facing our world is the marriage of militant Islam with nuclear weapons. We can't let that happen.
When I'm president, I will adopt a strategy that focuses on three things when it comes to Iran. First, we will stand up to Iran's aggressive push to destabilize and dominate the region. Iran is a problem in Iraq, a problem in Syria, a problem in Lebanon, a problem in Yemen, and will be a very, very major problem for Saudi Arabia. I've been with Israel so long in terms of I've received some of my greatest honors from Israel. My father before me, incredible. My daughter Ivanka is about to have a beautiful Jewish baby.
What is your secret? Because we don't seem to have the hang of that.
The secret is that we have America.
President Trump says that he doesn't want war with Iran, but that's exactly what he wants, because that's exactly what Saudi Arabia, Netanyahu, Bolton, and other neocons and neolibs want. That's what he puts first, not America.
No more war. No war in the Gulf. No war on Iran.
To stop this man, let's boost this message. Please leave a like to this video, a comment to the video, that helps, and you can use the YouTube tools to share this video on social media